Welcome back into our live stream day 3 of the 2020 NFL Draft. The New England Patriots officially did not trade up into the 4th round. We're now into the 5th round and about 5-6 picks away from the Patriots picking here at 159. We'll give you all a moment to come into this live stream as we go along here. Drop your questions in our chat room here. Let us know who you want to see the Patriots pick at 159. Evan and Trags, what direction you think the Patriots are going here?
Kicker. I think the Patriots go out and get a kicker of high value, high quality. Obviously, there are a couple of ways they could go. The kicker from Georgia is one possibility, but I like Sam Sloman from Miami of Ohio simply because he's kicked outdoors in the elements, northern climate. And I like this stat. He has an impressive 11 of 14 kicking rate from beyond 40 yards last year, or last year, I should say. And I think that's a big deal for Bill Belichick when considering field position. And if you're playing close defensive games, which I think, given how the Patriots are reworking their defense and playing a priority on defense, that might be the case. The Patriots might be playing a lot more low scoring, close to the vest games. And I think certainly if that is the case, you want a kicker who's a little bit more reliable from 40 to 49 yards.
Yeah, I love the outdoor element of your take there, Travis, because you look at the two other kind of prize kickers in the draft, both Georgia guys, right? Georgia Southern and then the University of Georgia. Not exactly inclement weather down there, no snow, no bad rain, what we have up here, nor'easters, that type of stuff. So it's not going to have that kind of experience doing those sort of things. So it does kind of put a little bit of a interesting twist there. I think one thing that it's a little bit different this year than in years past because of the coronavirus pandemic is that because there was no top 30 visits, you don't have the opportunity to have some of these quarterbacks and some of these kickers kick a wet football or throw a wet football. And the Patriots bring these guys in for top 30 visits. They put the ball, they dunk the ball in the bucket as Bill Belichick does, and they have opportunities to see if those guys can handle a wet ball. And now you don't really have that chance. So you kind of have to go with the guy that has experience maybe more so than kind of projecting that he'll be able to do it.
Here in our comments, someone asked, is it too early for James Proche? That's my guy. What do you think?
No, absolutely not. This is the sweet spot for James Proche. I've been clamoring for them to draft a wide receiver all day. I would love to see them draft James Proche. I think this is the exact opportunity for them to do so, and he probably won't be on the board when they pick again in the 6th round. Really, the only reason why he's still on the board is in a limited athletic profile. There are some concerns about his speed and ability to create separation and run away from coverage at the NFL level, but he is a technician between the numbers and in the slot, a guy that really gets in and out of his routes and understands how to win with body positioning and leverage down the field. And he's one of the more productive college football receivers in this draft, averaged over 2.5 yards per route run last year to lead this class. So a big time route runner, a big time hands guy as well. He's got excellent hands to go all around his frame and just snag passes wherever they're thrown, off target, on target, whatever the case may be. He has some of the best hands, some of the best route running in this class. He's just not going to wow you with athleticism and kind of pop off the tape with his separation skills.
And let's talk about some noteworthy moves from the 4th round. The Colts select quarterback Jacob Eason with the 122nd pick. This obviously launching the Twitter sphere into questions and conversations about, hey, could Jacoby Brissett now be on the trade block, and could he land in Foxborough, where we know he's very familiar here in New England? Do you think the Patriots make a run at Brissett, who's on the last year of his contract?
Well, this is one pick that I actually thought was a little bit odd, to be honest with you. Jacob Eason to the Colts. I understand sort of the appeal, I guess, of having a young quarterback learn from Phillip Rivers. That's a good kind of experience. But the Colts run a very West Coast heavy scheme. That's what they are doing down there. The Doug Peterson, Frank Reich, that kind of coaching tree. And it takes an accurate on-time passer to be able to win in that kind of scheme. And Eason's more of that big arm type quarterback that wants to play from under center, play with play action, have a lot of 5 and 7 step drops. That's not what this offense does in Indianapolis. So a little bit of an odd fit there. So I kind of wonder if they just saw the value as being so high for Eason at that point in the draft that they just took him as sort of an asset, if you will, because it's really not a great scheme fit for Eason in Indianapolis. So thought that was an interesting pick. As far as Jacoby Brissett goes, I mean, he would be cheap. It's an affordable contract if the Patriots trade for him. And he's also obviously got the history, and they clearly liked him in the draft a few years ago. So I'm sure that they still like him as a person and as a player. So I wouldn't completely rule it out. It's an interesting pickup potentially as more of a higher upside backup to a guy like Brian Hoyer. At least Brissett maybe can give you a little bit more of a ceiling there in terms of what he could be as a starter.
You know, and who knows? A lot can happen between now and the start of camp. I don't think the Patriots would cut Brian Hoyer, bring in Jacoby Brissett, and draft a quarterback. But, you know, I wouldn't rule anything off the table at this point. If I'm just curious to really find out what they feel about Jake Fromm. If there's any chance of somebody leaking the details of their inside info on Jake Fromm, why he has stuck around for so long in the draft, I've got to think it's really got to do about his arm strength, and that's why he's been on the board for so long.
Right, Evan, before we get your take on Jake Fromm, the Jets selected James Morgan with the 125th pick over Jake Fromm, when Jake Fromm was the guy who beat him out for the job at Georgia. So why do you think it is that Fromm is still on the board here now as we get a couple picks deep in the 5th round?
Hand size. That's what it's all about. He's got mini hands. I think he's probably got the same size hands as I do. I mean, we're talking about a guy that not only has small hands by quarterback standards, he had some of the smallest hands in the entire draft, just of a draft prospect in general, 8 7/8 inches. So below that 9-inch threshold, that puts him in the 3rd percentile for quarterbacks at the quarterback position for hand size. And I know that that sounds crazy, but when you pair that together with the fact that he doesn't have a huge arm, right? And you pair the fact that his hands are very, very small, you start to really be concerned about ball security, ball handling, especially for teams that are playing outdoors in inclement weather. That becomes a concern. I mentioned the top 30 visits, not having the opportunity to test that with a wet ball or anything like that. That's going to be the problem again, I think, for a guy like Jake Fromm, is that they don't have the opportunity to test those hands and test that ball security. Now, ironically, he was actually probably one of the better ball handlers in this class on play action and on fakes and jet sweeps and types of plays like that. He was very, very good at that at Georgia, but he's playing at Georgia where it's, very warm most of the time. You're not going to get bad weather. He's also playing a couple of dome games like in the college football playoff and in the national championship. Those games that has the best tape possible for him are all indoors or in great weather. So I think that's the biggest concern right now for Fromm.
And do you think it's the Patriots' time to go with either a kicker or a wide receiver? I know a lot of people are asking on Twitter and in our mentions, could it be a Strobridge, another defensive player, or do you think it's either wide receiver or kicker here?
Well, I'm not going to pretend that I know what the Patriots big board looks like, because that's what really a lot of this comes down to, the big board plus their evaluations of players' character. And in these rounds, 4, 5, 6, and 7, that's where a lot of character players come into the play, and why special teams has always been a big deal for the Patriots, because it just so happens that a lot of the character players that and very much very academically inclined football players, high football IQ is what I'm trying to say. Those players wind up on special teams for Bill Belichick because they can serve a lot of different roles. We saw that with Nate Ebner. We saw that obviously with Joe Cardona. He's a high character guy from the Naval Academy. And you talk about Matthew Slater. So, I mean, when you talk about Slater, Ebner, and Cardona, those are the kind of players you look for, like Evan said earlier, here in these rounds, these later rounds.
Yeah, so the big reason why the fifth round is the money round for special teams. And the big reason why, and Trag mentioned Cardona, Jake Bailey, Matthew Slater, all these guys former fifth round picks for the Patriots. And the big reason why is that statistically, the analytics tell us that there's no difference between a fifth, a sixth, and a seventh round pick in terms of their overall NFL projection. It's an equal line at that point of the draft. So really, the fifth round is the least valuable round of the entire draft to have a pick in. So that's a big reason why you see a lot of special teams guys come off the board in this round, is because really there's no difference between drafting a position player now than there is drafting a position player in the seventh round in terms of what kind of guy they're going to be at the next level, just based off the averages. The other reason why this is a big special teams round, I think, is that usually after the fourth round, and really after the third round, but mostly after the fourth round, there's a pretty big drop off now. Now we're getting to the point where a lot of these guys are going to be battling for roster spots. And the only way that you're going to make a roster as a late day 3 pick is if you can contribute in the kicking game in some way, shape, or form. If you can't play on fourth down as a seventh round pick, then your odds of making the team, especially a team like the Patriots, go way, way, way down. So I think that's a big reason why we see a lot of those specialists, a lot of specialized type of players come off the board to New England in the fifth round. But with that being said, Juwan Bentley was a fifth round pick. So, it's not always the specialist. So there is some history there of the Patriots hitting on fifth round picks with positional players.
I also think it would be kind of funny going back to Jake Fromm if he gets selected in the sixth round, because, you take a look at the numbers. They have a pick in the sixth round at 195 and one at 204, kind of sandwiched around 199. You know where I'm going with this, right?
Yes.
So I just think there'd be some symmetry there with TB12 now down in Tampa. And if the Patriots were to take a quarterback in and around the 199 spot in the sixth round, and it happened to be Jake Fromm, I think it'd be a pretty hilarious story.
Yeah. There's some really good players still up on the board here. I really think that there's some talented guys. I mean, looking at Curtis Weaver from Boise State, I'm not exactly sure why he's fallen as far as he has. A lot of people pegged him as a top 100 player in this draft. It must be some sort of a medical red flag or something like that we're not aware of. He put up big time numbers at Boise State last year, big time sack and pressure production. Another name I would look at is Bradley Anae from Utah, who the Patriots have already drafted a couple of guys that had big weeks at the Senior Bowl and were guys that they met with at the Senior Bowl. And Ina was someone that really impressed scouts down there in Mobile earlier this year in January. So I think that's another player that they might be interested in. KJ Hill, of course, I've been banging the table for him. Another guy that was at the Senior Bowl as well. So I think that maybe look at some of those guys too that were some of these seniors that were down there in Mobile, because the Patriots seem to be in a year where they're not really having those top 30 visits, not having pro days. I think they're putting a lot of stock in what they saw in Mobile, because they were able to really be up close and personal with those prospects.
We've got a couple people in our comments here, guys. Feel free to leave us some questions or tell us who you'd like to see the Patriots draft here at 159. We're now 3 picks away. The Redskins are on the clock with pick 156. David Azrak asking about KJ Hill. We've got someone else asking about Donovan Peoples-Jones. How would you kind of rank these wide receivers that are still available on the board?
I had Peoples-Jones ahead of Proche because of the athleticism. Peoples-Jones is a very good athlete, tested extremely well at the combine, one of the better wide receiver testers in this class. Why is he falling? I think the biggest reason why is that the production at Michigan never matched the athleticism. He was never able to take that, kind of workout warrior and then turn it into actual football tape where he's producing at a high level. So kind of an underachiever, I guess, in Ann Arbor. And I think that's a big reason why we're seeing him slip a little bit. Maybe there's other stuff that we don't know about him also going on here. But in terms of what we do know, I would say the major reason why he's even still on the board at this point is because of the fact that really he never lived up to the hype at Michigan. Everybody was kind of saying this guy's going to break out. This guy's going to break out because of how athletic he is. And you can see it on tape when you watch him when he does get the opportunity to make plays down the field, just how fast and elusive and kind of the ability to go up and catch the ball and have a good contested catch skill set as well. It all exists for him, but he's never really able to put it together. Some people have also blamed the coaching staff a little bit there at Michigan for not really knowing how to use him properly and not really being able to unlock that skill set. The quarterback play too wasn't great either. So there's a lot of factors there, but that's the big problem I think right now for Donovan Peoples-Jones.
And I want to talk about a neat little connection quickly as we wait here for the Patriots pick, now 2 away. Between 3 of the Patriots picks from day 2, Patriots tight end David Asiasi was roommates at the combine with Dalton Keene, the other tight end that the Patriots drafted, and also with Josh Uche at Michigan's freshman bridge program. What a coincidence. Do you think this is possibly Bill Belichick knowing that these 3 had a connection and bringing them in because of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about that, Sierra, over the last couple of days, that the Patriots look to bring in not only a lot of talented, young, versatile players, but they also look to put these players in the best positions possible to excel right away. Because the Patriots knew many, many years ago that the way the NFL draft was really coming into play and evolving over the last couple of years was that you're relying a lot more on these younger players to contribute right away. And one way to do that is put them in a comfortable environment. What's the easiest way to do that? Put them around players they're familiar with. And I think that certainly, to your point, Sierra, is a big part of what they're trying to do here. And I thought Devin Asiasi on his conference call today was super excited to be coming to New England and getting a chance to really, along with the other tight end that they drafted, Dalton Keene, get a chance to fill the shoes of Rob Gronkowski.
And Evan, we got a couple questions here coming in the chat asking about offensive linemen. Who are the best guys still on the board?
Yeah, there are a couple of really good offensive linemen still out there. I would say Trey Adams from Washington's probably the top-ranked tackle on most people's boards. My guy Prince Tega is still out there. I like him as well at the tackle spot. In terms of interior guys, I think we're starting to get into the Nathan Muti conversation now. So Muti had some serious injuries in college. He only ended up playing, I think it was 19 collegiate games, and but he's got guard tackle versatility. He's probably most likely going to be a guard. That's where he kind of fits best. I would say that he's a prospect. The Patriots usually like those guys that played a little bit of left tackle in college, and now you can move them inside to guard, and they got those movement skills still of a tackle, but maybe their frame or their body type just fits a little bit better as a guard. Think Joe Tooney, for example, is a perfect example of a guy that was a full-time left tackle in college and then comes over and plays guard for the Pats. You're looking at center prospects right now too. Nick Harris from Washington's kind of a cerebral center prospect, a lot of experience, a big time, 4-year type starter there for Washington. I think he's got the capability to come in and compete and possibly back up sort of in like a Ted Karras type of way, David Andrews as a rookie. So I think that those are a couple of guys that you can look at. I hope that they have an eye on Prince though, because he's a very raw prospect right now, new to football, coming over from Africa and not really having a ton of experience in his football life. But at the same time, he's got all of the movement skills that you want for a true left tackle prospect, and great feet and just great agility and ability to slide and mirror there as a pass protector. So I think that he's got upside up the wazoo to really play and start at a left tackle position maybe in 2 to 3 years.
Well, the Patriots are on deck. The Jets are on the clock with pick 158 here. All the guys we talked about on this live stream still on the board as of right now. I know early on in this live stream when we first hopped on, we talked about kicking prospects. Quickly, just name a couple that you guys think the Patriots could grab here at 159.
Yeah, I mean, Tyler Bass, and Blankenship. I think that's right now, those are the two guys that I would say this early in the draft are probably the most likely. Sam Sloman, Trags' guy, I think is probably a little bit of a later round prospect, maybe even an undrafted rookie signing that they could bring in. I don't know. I'm not sure he's worthy necessarily of a draft pick, but certainly capable of being a kicker in the league. And JJ Molson from UCLA is the one other name I would throw out there. But I like Blankenship, but I really like Bass for New England. I think that he's got that kind of laissez attitude and in a really kind of laid back demeanor that reminds me a lot of Gostkowski. You know, Gostkowski, you see him walking around the locker room, and that guy, he's just so relaxed and calm all the time and not really overthinking things. So I think that that's what they really need in the kicker, is someone with a short memory.
And I also think one of the big things you're looking for in a kicker is how do they handle clutch situations. And, I think for those who watch a lot of college football, they know that Lance Blankenship made a lot of big kicks at Georgia, but there was one game last year, I believe it was against South Carolina, where he had the chance to come in and beat them at home at Georgia and missed the kick, and they lost the game. And that's something that just sticks in my memory bank, but certainly doesn't take away from the fact that he was voted the kicker of the year in college football.
Yeah, it's actually funny that kick. A lot of people remember that kick, that he missed it. It was a big kick to miss. But at the same time, I think a lot of scouts look at that and say, okay, but how did he kick after that kick? That could be a kick with a lot of kickers that are fragile. That could, end the career right there. That could be it. That could really, just the confidence could go right out the window. And he came back and bounced back, and really in the next game, it wasn't really a big deal. So I think that there's a little bit to learn from that kick, but I agree that there were some opportunities there he had in college where he didn't exactly step up and rise to the occasion.
Guys, we're moments away now from the Patriots pick at 159. If it was up to you, if you were Bill Belichick, who would you draft here?
I would go wide receiver. I mean, yeah. I know that this is a typically a special teams type of round, but with so much need in the wide receiver position for the Patriots, and I just would go after the best pure guy, best
Patriots
pure
are on the
guy
clock.
with the best hands. What's that, Evan, now?
Patriots are on the clock. The Jets pick is in, so the Patriots are currently on the clock right now.
Yeah, Evan, don't you agree? Don't you want to see the Patriots
yes,
add the best speed guy with the best hands, that best combo?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of really great wide receivers still on the board, that we're talking about guys that could come in year one and contribute in some way, shape, or form. Whereas with these other positions, outside of just drafting a kicker for that need, these other positions, there's not a ton of guys that are going to come in here and start or impact right away and really impact the two deep roster, if you will. Whereas a guy like KJ Hill or Donovan Peoples-Jones, or even if we want to go with like a Courtney Davis or James Proche, or I think Quintus Cephas is out there still as well, or Tyler Johnson, Isaiah Hodges. I mean, this is a lot of players, I think, out there still at the wide receiver position that can come in here and compete for a top 3 spot as a rookie. And that's exactly what you're looking for.
Yeah, and I'm with you on KJ Hill. I watch a lot of Ohio State football naturally, and he just made so many big catches in big situations, in the rare situations where games were really close for the Buckeyes last year. It was KJ Hill that they went to, including in the national semifinal game that they lost to Clemson. I believe it was his catch that gave him the go-ahead score before Clemson came back and won that game.
That's the big thing, is he was in an offense at Ohio State that had, over the years, guys like Paris Campbell and Terry McLaurin and big time wide receiver prospects that are more heralded than he is. And he was the one that ends up with the career receptions record, not those guys.
Kicker, Marshall's Justin Rohrwasser at number 159.
Of course. So they take a kicker that nobody has heard of at 159. I knew it was going to be a kicker that none of us have been talking about.
So my daughter's going to be disappointed. I was trying to get Janie all excited about them taking Sam Sloman. Oh, well.
Yeah. Out of Marshall, guys, we had predicted that you were saying, Evan, this is around the Patriots usually go with a specialist and they get their kicker here in the 5th round. Do you like it?
I mean, it's the time to do it, right? I mean, I talked about that a little bit at the beginning. Is just the fact is that this round is not a very valuable round. It's just a round that in the 6th or the 7th, they're going to get the same level of prospect at a position, not a skill position or a specialist, excuse me. So that this is the time to do it. And I'm not surprised at all that they had a kicker in mind that nobody knows about, that nobody had as like, it's not Blankenship, it's not Bass, it's not even Sloman, it's somebody else completely off the reservation.
Like you mentioned, Matthew Slater, Zoltan Mesko, Joe Cardona, Jake Bailey, and now Justin. I'm still trying to figure out the last name pronunciation. Rohrwasser. So a lot of specialists for the Patriots here in the 5th round. We were joking before today, Evan, whether or not you would know all of the guys drafted by the Patriots today in day 3. Did you know Rohrwasser?
No, they got me on the kicker. I knew this was going to be it. I knew that they were going to get me on the kicker. Last year, I made it to the same spot in the draft. And who was it that they got me with? I can't remember which one of the picks it was on day 3, but they stumped me with one of them, and I knew it was going to be the kicker.
Do you think this is another reach for the Patriots? People have been saying a couple of their picks in day 2 yesterday were reaches. Do you think this is as well?
I'm going to say no for the Patriots because they don't usually draft. The success of Bill Belichick drafting kickers has been pretty strong. And I think this has been pretty well documented. Obviously, he's had very good success in the punting game. And I don't think they would take a kicker unless they thought he had demonstrated consistency in college. Obviously the kicking situation was an outlier last year when they went through so many kickers in a short period of time. Injury, appendix issues had a lot to do with that. But I think usually when it comes down to Belichick's ability and his scouting staff to scout kickers, he's usually spot on. So I don't think this is going to wind up being too much of a reach. I'm going to trust in Belichick on this one.
4 picks now for the Patriots in the 6th round, and then they have 1 in the 7th. What do you think the Patriots do with their 5 final picks here? Do you think they're drafting 5 more players, or what can they do to maximize their picks?
I think
this
that's
is usually a situation, right, where, and I said this last night, where the Patriots will take at least one of those picks and package them for a future pick next year or the year beyond that, but probably in 2021. And I wouldn't be surprised if they did that twice. I still think they've got to go after a wide receiver, given the fact that we're all assuming on the outside, right, Evan, that this is an incredibly deep field of wide receiver talent, and given the need, the projected need or the perceived need on the Patriots roster for speed at the wide receiver position, I would just be shocked if they didn't take one.
Yeah, I think the one thing about Rohrwasser, I think that's how you say it, 6'3", 230 pounds. This is a big time kicker. Like, this is a big dude. That's bigger. They drafted, Uche is 6'1", 245, and the kicker is almost as big as he is. So, that's a big kicker. So obviously, with the big kicker, you probably expect a big leg. I mean, I would have to think that he's got a pretty good boot, and he seems to be relatively accurate. But I think that it's more so the fact that he probably has a pretty good leg that he could kick, 40 plus yards, and they're not going to be worried about, having him test that leg a little bit.
Well, and the other thing, we mentioned kicking in the elements. Marshall in West Virginia is definitely in the elements, and that's outdoors. So he definitely has that experience having kicked in the elements before.
He also played at the University of Rhode Island before transferring to Marshall, so he's familiar with the New England area. He was 15 of 20 on field goals at URI, and then 33 of 42 on field goals at Marshall. So we'll continue to give you your coverage on Rohrwasser as we learn a little bit more about him. You can find that coverage a little bit later on our website at clnsmedia.com. And I'm sure we'll be jumping back on here soon as the Patriots have an abundance of picks here in round 6 that we'll see what they're going to do with it. Trags, like you said, this could be setting up nicely for Jake Fromm in the 6th round, like a little TB12 throwback. We'll see you soon.